Today's video is all about two different types of takeaway. The takeaway which is much wider on the backswing like Rory McIlroy, or a takeaway which is set much earlier, kind of Danny Willett style, and exploring the causes and effects of each different takeaway and how this can help benefit or influence your swing. So to start with, what do I like to see at setup and what do I like to see as a rough baseline in the takeaway from there? Amongst other things, two key things I want us to get right at setup that can influence our takeaway. Number one, where is our posture and weight? So I would start with posture to begin with. A really good way to get this is to start from a bolt upright position, bend slightly at the knees, and then from there just bend at the hips until you find the golf ball. This will stop you being someone who's too squatted down or too arched and bent at the hips. And from there you'll be able to find good weight in the sense of that we want the weight to be going straight down into the balls of my feet. So if you need to rock forwards and backwards, find that middle ground, do so. But you'll now be in a position with good posture and good weight distribution, which from there should hopefully find the arms are just hanging straight down. So this is the second key. Where are the arms? We don't want them too forced out. We don't want them too sucked in. We want them to hang to a point where the outside of my thumb sits just outside of my shoulder head. Okay? So if I've got good posture and weight distribution, my arms are hanging in a relevant place, I'm in a pretty good spot to take the golf away in the right manner. Now, as a rough baseline to the takeaway, and this is what's going to help us understand which takeaway is going to be better suited to ourselves, is what do I tend to typically look for? Well, now that I've got the posture in a good place, the key position that we're obviously looking at is when the golf club is parallel to the ground. So when the golf club is parallel to the ground, I'm looking for the lead arm to somewhat match the back of my spine. I don't like it too far out, and the rarer of the two, I don't like it too sucked in. And I like to see the golf club kind of square to close, really. We like that, so looking at the leading edge there, and we want that to be matching the spine line as well. We don't want it too closed, however a smidge closed I'm kind of a little bit biased towards, and we definitely don't want it too open from there as well. Okay, so when it comes to understanding shortly which takeaway is better suited for us, it's which takeaway will gear us closer towards that baseline that I like to see of the arms and the club face being in a good place relative to our starting position as well. So now let's understand the two takeaways, which in their simplest form is something which is much wider, Rory McIlroy style type takeaway, and something which is more like Danny Willett, where the wrist set quite early, the swing is quote completed kind of straight away, and then we kind of just turn and hit from there. So the first takeaway we're going to explore is when you'd consider an early wrist set takeaway and how that might benefit / influence your golf swing. So the three key areas, number one would be the width of the golf swing, and I'm not just talking about how we take that golf club away from a width perspective, but what we need on the way down. So if you're one of these people who see the golf club get quite close in towards you, very steep and narrow on the downswing, you might consider more of an early wrist set takeaway. As you will find that by setting the wrist kind of quite early from the off, that you're going to get into a position where you can just complete your swing and you can feel like the arms are working away from you much more naturally. Not to be confused with the wrist unwinding, it is the arm structure unwinding to take you away from that kind of narrow feeling on the way down. If I was to tell you to go wide and move those arms away, you'd find that much more challenging than by setting the wrist early, going to the top and then feeling like the arms are traveling away from you. So that would be port call number one. What sort of width do I need on the way down? So if I need to go wide on the way down, you would consider setting those wrists much earlier so you can find that move to be much more natural. Number two, connection in the backswing. So what I'm looking at here is from a down the line perspective. If you're someone who sees the hands move away, the club work inside, you will find that setting the wrist quite early is something that will be quite beneficial to you. As we kind of said, my baseline in the takeaway is I like to see the lead arm to match the spine line, and if the arms are working away, obviously that's going to be much tougher. Coupled with that, you'll often find that if I was to draw a line above the butt end of this golf club, someone who has a takeaway like this, you'll see this butt end of the golf club raise above, vertically above that line in the takeaway, which again for me is a little bit of a no. I like to see the butt end of the golf club stay under this line from the setup to the point that the shaft is parallel to the ground, and then obviously the golf club will rise from there. So if you're someone, like I say, who sees this disconnection in the hands, in the golf club, lots of kind of gap in here in that lead armpit area, again, your ability to set that golf club straight away, and that is literally straight away from the swing, not earlier, it's from the get-go, will really help you to stay much more connected in the swing in general and in that takeaway from there. And then number 2, if you're someone who is quite steep in transition, you need some more kind of shallow in ideas on the way down, this actual setting of the wrist kind of quite earlier can help with that as well, because the setting of the wrist earlier can actually help you to feel like your ability to create steepness in the shaft, so more vertical ideas in the shaft on the way up, becomes much more natural because you're using the wrist to kind of direct the golf club straight up. And as a result, when the golf club is much steeper on the way to the top, it can be influenced to shallow out on the way down much more naturally from there. So we've got width. Do I need width on the way down with the arms? Do I need better connection in the backswing? Am I like this? Do I need to be much tighter? And am I someone who struggles with a bit of steepness on the way down? So if I can set it steep on the way back, I can influence shallow on the way down. So there are your kind of 3 port calls as to how early wrist set can help. So now looking at a much wider takeaway, how can that influence swinging things in your swing to benefit you? Going over those 3 areas again: width, connection, and steepness. So if you're someone who needs a bit more compression in the irons, wants to see a much more penetrative kind of strike, so we need to see more angle basically coming into delivery, you would consider a much wider takeaway. By the same measure, we said earlier on that if I set the wrist early, I can get the arms to work away from us. Well, if I'm Rory McIlroy style and I feel a nice wide kind of takeaway, a nice push and stretch in the arms on the way back, that's going to allow the golf club to much more naturally drop down into a position where I see more angle in the wrists, and as a result, much more angle coming into the hitting area as well. So that kind of wide and down kind of feeling will really help you with that. From a connection perspective, rarer but also possible. If you're someone who sees the arms kind of work towards our kind of trail pocket too much, and the club kind of works out, kind of to exaggerate, I guess, old school Ricky Fowler a little bit, then a much wider takeaway can help with that as well. If I was to go wide, it's going to influence more this, loosely speaking. It's not going to create that, but it's going to work you away from this kind of in and golf club out type takeaway. So if we can feel the golf club works more out, if you are someone who does struggle with a little bit of this, then that can really help you from there. And then looking into shaft pitch here, more looking at someone who really picks the golf club up here. So usually when someone picks the golf club up, you'll see the body's not very engaged in a rotational manner. The golf club and the arms go straight up. You might see a little bit of a collapse in here as well. If you think about ideas of taking the golf club back much wider, much kind of stretched back, has a bit of a feeling, you're going to get the arms sit into a much shallow position at the top, so they're not going to be so up and high and collapsed. And it's going to look to engage the body rotation a little bit more as well. As we start to kind of feel like we're stretching back, creating that width in that takeaway, our body engages its rotation much better, the arms sit on a much shallower plane, and you can find that that takeaway, that widthy takeaway, can really help you if you're someone who struggles with that kind of move, that kind of collapsing to the top from there. So if you're someone who needs compression, going wide and coming in can really help you with that. If you're someone who sees a little bit of old school Ricky Fowler, if you like, club hands to in, club to out, again, width can help from there. And lastly, if you're someone who sees that very non-rotational, picked up potential clappy swing, then that wider takeaway can also engage the body and create a much shallower backswing with much better turn in there as well. So hopefully that tidies up a few takeaway questions for you to understand that there isn't one size fits all takeaway. It's about understanding we've got 2 types of takeaway relative to what we discussed today, wide and some with a little bit more set, and how it can influence things in your swing to benefit what you're looking to do. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to drop me a comment in the comment section down below, or drop me a follow on my socials. For any online or in-person coaching, drop me a follow on the SKILLEST app, search David Atkins and drop me a message from there. But until next time, catch you on the next one.